Welcome back to Final Trade, another episode of Premodern Power, this time featuring Nevinyrral's Disc. The good old 4-mana enchantment comes into play tapped, and once you can get it untapped, pay a little bit of mana and wipe out all the creatures, enchantments, and artifacts. So the really interesting thing about this, I always thought, was that it's an artifact. So you can put it into all kinds of different decks, and in fact, in the old vintage era of Magic, it saw its way into Necropotence decks, so that you could wipe out your own Necropotence enchantment and you could wipe out all the creatures on the board and then flood a bunch from your hand immediately. It was in Counter Phoenix. I play it in a silly land destruction deck that I'm kind of toying around with. And it's the way that they balance that power of it with the versatility of being an artifact. They balanced that with it coming into play tap. So your opponent had an entire turn to use sorcery speed effects against it. And it's interesting comparing this against other mass destruction cards of the era, like Jokal Hops that took lands and creatures and artifacts, Wrath of God that took creatures, Armageddon that took land, Tranquility that took all enchantments. But here you had a special combination of creatures, enchantments, and artifacts. And the really cool thing about that is when you keep your land, you still have the ability to do interesting things after you've popped the disc. And so I think this is a really cool, powerful card from the time. I think I had one copy of this back when I played 20 years ago. Sadly, I may have told the story before, but a kid in the library in the morning, he offered me a Sliver Queen for my Nevinyrral's Disc, and I turned him down because I loved the disc so much, and Sliver Queen was kind of considered a lame card back then. And now Sliver Queen's one of the two cards I don't have from Stronghold. You can probably guess the other one. And I have plenty of discs because they cost about $1 each, and I can afford to use them in all my decks as much as I want. But this is really a great mass destruction card. It's so iconic of the era. Turned up in a lot of World Championship decks, and WotC has kept reprinting it even to today. I think it's on the list, or maybe it was. Let's see, it wasn't a Mystical Archive, but because those weren't permanents. But just a wonderful card from the pre-modern era. It's so nostalgic, so widely used in so many decks, and so well balanced. It really shows a kind of era when WotC thought, "What are we doing here? What kind of trade-offs are players making? How can we make something that's fun and interesting and powerful in the right ways?" And I think that's kind of something that's been lost over time. Too many cards, too little play testing, and they've kind of thrown that by the wayside. So it's definitely deserves a spot in the pre-modern power. So if you like this kind of content, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade. Thanks.